Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Amber Oquindo with the Global Counterterrorism Institute, and today we're going to be talking with Mr. Todd Bryce, who is the co-founder and CEO of GCTI, and we're going to be talking with him today about building resilience to climate change as we get ready to prepare for our June event being held at the UCLA Luskin Center on June 3 and 4. So welcome, Mr. Bryce. And would you like to give us an introduction to building resilience to climate change?
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, it's good to be here. So climate change is a global challenge. It has significant social, economic, and environmental impacts. With the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, with rising temperatures and sea levels rising, it's now more than ever essential to build resilience to climate change. And what is climate change, really? Understanding it is the key, right? Everybody talks about it, but understanding it is the key. Climate change refers to the long-term changes in the Earth's climate system caused by, one, human activities, which we've talked about, including the burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, and land use changes. And what happens is these activities result in the emissions of greenhouse gases, which trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, causing global warming. Now, climate change does have a significant impact on the environment, such as melting glaciers, rising sea levels, increased frequency of extreme weather events, floods, droughts, hurricanes. These affect the socioeconomic systems we have, including food security, water availability, and public health. So it's time for communities to start building resilience. We do this every year when hurricane season strikes. Every year when we have tornadoes, it happens nonstop, fires, and we're starting to build the resilience. But what's it take to do that? Well, it's actually three different areas that we need to look for: local support, national support, and sometimes international support. So hopefully that was a good introduction, and we can go from there.
Okay. All right. So what are some of the different strategies for building resilience to climate change, and how can we really look at implementing that on a real scale?
Some of it is land use planning, improved infrastructure design and maintenance, more early warning systems, and natural resource management. Of course, we do disaster preparedness and response planning all the time, but these strategies have to be implemented at different levels, at the local level, at the regional and national level, in order to be effective. Meaning there's not a one-size-fits-all disaster relief plan that is going to work for everybody in every state. It's just not going to work. So they have to be done at the local level also.
Right. Okay. And so when we're looking at that, how can adaptation measures reduce the vulnerability of those communities at the local level, considering their infrastructure and ecosystems due to those climate change impacts?
Well, adaptation it can reduce vulnerability. When you implement the measures such as building seawalls or improving water management and developing early warning systems for extreme weather events, this helps build resilience in the communities so that these changes can be adapted to quicker. It's like crawl, walk, run, right? We've been planning these events for a certain number of time. We do these scenarios all the time, but they're not done everywhere, right? It's almost like they get done at maybe a capital city or a state capital, or a tri-state unilateral organization gets together and does these things. But at the local community level, how often do they happen? They happen with like active shooters, stuff like that, for schools and whatnot. But when it comes to mitigating and adapting for these climate change elements, this is something that needs to happen a lot more frequently, and more training is available for that.
Okay. So what are the different ways in which those mitigation measures can help to reduce greenhouse gases or limit the extent of climate change?
Well, energy efficiency is one way to prevent the carbon buildup, whatever greenhouse gases, however you want to call it. But transitioning to these clean energy sources, I think government regulation, it's politically driven sometimes, and it's scaled back, and certain people are in office versus harder regulations. But it's not just the United States, it's globally. Yes, we may lead the world in innovation with technology, greenhouse gas prevention measures, but that doesn't mean the rest of the world is not affected by it. Their level of either education or standards, we're trying to introduce that there, but it's not working. Why? Because in the 9 different regions, there are differences. We don't have as many cyclones as Southeast Asia. And so there's a different approach to that. We don't have the volcanoes erupting like other regions do nonstop.
Right.
Like El Salvador has earthquakes all the time. We just saw the massive earthquakes in Turkey. Mitigating these, and these are the effects of climate change, mitigating these are what more training is needed for, which is community engagement for building resilience. And in our training, we outline how to, meet with various stakeholders in your community, identify those things that are needed for promoting education and awareness. That's one major thing. And next is understanding the climate change and its impacts. You can yell climate change all you want, but if you're not educating people to what's really happening, how it's happening, and the prevention for it, it's everybody believes maybe, or some people believe that we're being forced on us. The EV era is being forced on us. No, it's another way of helping with it, just like recycling started out with. But over time, recycling has changed so much. There's only certain things recycling is used for now. And so you have to weigh out what is happening in these trainings to see and measure them, evaluate them, find the key performance indicators that are working, and then obviously engaging the community in participating with planning, consultations, and citizen science initiatives. I think that covers some of the things you were going to ask in your questions.
Okay, so we've covered some of the major points. What is climate change? What is the resilience to climate change, mitigation, as well as community engagement? So what are the major points that you're going to be covering in your upcoming presentation in June at the UCLA Luskin Center? Why should people attend your lecture, and what are you going to provide them with?
So within the seminar itself, and looking at a theoretical framework and the training, climate change is a global challenge. Like I said, it threatens to disrupt social, economic, and environmental systems. The learning outcomes for the training by the end of the seminar is they're going to understand the concepts of vulnerability, adaptive capacity, and social ecological systems in the context of climate change. Next, we're going to identify the risk and impacts of climate change on different systems because they are different by region. And also we'll design and implement effective adaptation and mitigation measures, all while trying to develop action plans and identifying relevant tools and resources for implementing resilience building measures in their communities. That's just the learning outcomes. There is a course outline available if they would like a copy of it to see what we're teaching. It's, there is an introduction to climate science, different systems and sectors, the impacts, vulnerability assessments, vulnerability with adaptive capacity in the context of climate change, and then social ecological systems and their vulnerabilities. This sounds a lot technical, and it's not. The average educated, as far as you've graduated high school, you would be able to understand this material because it's right there for you to look at also. So while you're getting the overview of the course at the conference, all the material in the workbook you're going to be able to take home. Now, this is 8 CPE, continuing professional education credit hours. And so you'll get all the information. The first section is a 2-hour block. The second section is 4 hours with governance, institutions, and community participation in building resilience. And then the next section is action planning and implementation, which will take participants based on their participation in discussions, because participation is part of it. We have activities that we'll be doing and they'll be doing within their groups, and they'll be required to develop an action plan for implementing resilience building measures in their own community. We're going to look at LA because LA does have a 2045 climate action plan of reduction of emissions and gases, greenhouse gases. There's going to be PowerPoints for them to take and look at, handouts for key concepts, and then there'll be some relevant research papers and sources listed for them to be able to take with them. They'll be able to use this material to train others. This is a train the trainer version type of course. It's not just learning. Mm-hmm. You'll learn and be able to teach to other people. We believe education is the key in all forms in global security of stopping attacks of terror. Those attacks of terror can also be climate change, depending on the veracity of them. So that's the next thing we look forward to exploring.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to your presentation at the June conference. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
You're welcome.